The Lewis Lumber Company has been the cornerstone of Verde Beach since its founding, flourishing in its tropical climate. But now as they look to expand and diversify their lumber offerings, they're seeking a new location with a temperate climate. Chuck King, the newly elected Magnolia County executive, catches wind of this news during his monthly meetings with Clearwater Southern and immediately sees an opportunity. He envisions Lewis Lumber not only as a boon to the local economy, but also a way to manage urban sprawl near Bend. And the timing couldn't be better, seeing as Bend has just approved another development that goes right up against the urban growth boundary. Chuckles reaches out to Lewis Lumber to pitch them on the idea of setting up shop in Magnolia County. He emphasizes the county's high quality of life, low land costs, and attractive tax incentives. He also boasts about the high-skilled and available workforce, which I think is the politest way of saying the unemployment rate is high. Overall, though, it's a compelling pitch. And after careful consideration and a visit to a prime parcel off Respect Lane, Lewis Lumber executives see the potential in Magnolia County and agree to set up shop. A few months later, as the deal is being authorized at a county board meeting, Lewis Lumber executives reveal further plans, a paper factory that will require at least 1,000 employees. They say that the factory promises substantial growth and new opportunities for the region. Chuckles is taken aback. This is not what he had in mind. So in this episode, we're going to build a massive, realistic-looking forestry industry. In fact, I'm hoping it looks so good that you'll think that we're building with the industry's DLC. We'll also bring cargo rail to the site and build what I think might be the first custom cargo terminal in city Skylines too. We'll also expand Bend a bit and blend it into our forest. And if you've built a custom forestry industry, hit the like button. And if you had no idea this was possible, hit the like button for that too, and let me know what you've done down in the comments. Or leave an emoji representing forestry for the sake of engagement. But first, it's not every day that I get to tell you about a sponsor that I genuinely use multiple times a week, but it's not every day that I get to tell you about Factor. Seriously, I've been paying for Factor with my own money for years now, and I actually reached out to them myself to see if they'd be interested in sponsoring a video. So thank you to them for taking me up on that. If you're anything like me, balancing work, family, and kids' activities can get pretty hectic, and that's where Factor comes in. Their chef-prepared, ready-to-eat meals are perfect for busy days. Imagine this, delicious meals on the table in just 2 minutes flat. That means more time soaking in the summer sun and less time stressing in the kitchen. Best of all, they taste great. Today I'm having one of my favorites, roasted garlic chicken with green beans and onion mashed potatoes. And I'm having it with this pineapple turmeric basil cold pressed juice, which is delicious too. Now that it's summertime, schedules can change from week to week, and you might even be heading out of town for a vacation. The good news is that when things get hectic, Factor is super flexible. You can change your order every week, choosing from plans that range from 4 to 18 meals each week. And if you need to, you can pause or reschedule your deliveries at any time. So if you're looking for a convenient, delicious meal solution, give Factor a try. So head to factor75.com or click on the link below and use code CityPlannerPlays50 to get 50% off your first Factor box and 20% off your next month of orders. That's code CityPlannerPlays50 at factor75.com to get 50% off your first box plus 20% off your next month of orders. Once again, a huge thank you to Factor for sponsoring today's video. Now let's get back to it. Hello and welcome back to Magnolia County. Well, I'm really excited to get started on our forestry industry. The very first thing we need to do is a bit of site preparation and roadway layout. We have our previous industry right here. We'll call a mulligan on that. We've got a whole bunch of trees right here. We'll call a mulligan on them. And then we're going to wrap our road around here and come up with a layout for this little neighborhood right here so that we don't encroach upon it. So let's begin there. And we will bid a fond farewell to our previous industry and buy a few tiles. And what we're going to do is basically buy the rest of the tiles on this side of the river. Only $2 million and we have those purchased. So now I'm going to do a little bit of clearing here, and we are going to be bringing the trees back, but I want to do so in a way that's very controlled. Now I'm noticing that we have one little corner right here that we don't own, so I'm going to purchase that quickly. And I'm going to use a highway, and I want to make sure we've got our contour lines on. And I just want to ring this around the coast and meet up with this road right here. Now for that, we're going to have to do a bit of grading. You can see it's pretty steep in some of these locations. So we'll go back and forth between our highway tool and our slope terrain tool. And there we go. We've got this nice road all the way around the river. Now let's switch gears and start to think about the local roadway network that we're expanding. Now, what I'm thinking is I want there to be some sort of a breakdown of the grid. The first thing I'm going to do is kind of figure out how big this block size was. It's about 160 meters. So I care about that because I'm going to mirror that at least a little bit. And what I'm thinking we're gonna do to have this kind of end a little bit is we'll use our continuous tool to loop this around. That provides a definitive end right there. And now what I'm thinking is I want this to loop back around and terminate back into the grid here somewhere. So let's start by adding a road right here. And there we go. So what I've tried to do here is I swept this road back around following the contour lines that we have right here, brought this into our cul-de-sac. We have a cul-de-sac here. There's some weird stuff going on there, zoning. We'll fix that at some point. And then this road right here is going to end up being the road that turns into our rural road. Now you can see where this one is already teeing up with our existing rural roads, so it shouldn't be a difficult transition to make. Now, moving on to our rural roads, I want to think about basically the backbone, the arterial backbone of our rural roadway network. That's this road right here, which is part of our Jeffersonian grid, this one as well. And then we're going to take these existing roads and turn them into it. And then I think for all of our major rural roads, I'm going to upgrade these to be the paved alleyways. And then for all of the connecting roads, the local roads coming off serving our lumber industry, we'll have dirt roads for all of those. Now, I want to respect the topography right here. You see that we've got a bit of a hill, and it wouldn't make a ton of sense to just drive straight up this. So what we will do is use our continuous tool and come right around right there. We'll do the exact same thing over here. Now, I want to take this road and do something else with it. You can see it's lining right up to go right past our aggregates mine right here. Now, for the rest of our rural roads, I think that we will build them as we need them. And what I'd like to do now is do a little bit of adding trees through here, because I really want a lot of trees along the side of the river. Now, part of this comes from some inspiration that I got from this U.S. Forestry Service document, which kind of explained ways to sustainably have a forestry industry in a rural area. And I kind of want to follow some of the guidelines that I read. So what I want to do is go with a really small brush size. And when I say small, I mean like 10 or 20. And then I want a brush that has a mixture of both wild deciduous and evergreen trees. So if we wanted to create our own brush that has a little bit of everything, all we have to do is hold down Control, select all of the trees that we want within that brush, and then Control, click, hold it down, Control still, click where you want to save the brush. I want to go right along the side of this property line. I'm going to have Anarchy on so that we can get a nice dense forest. And then I want to make sure that we've got a variety of tree sizes. If we don't, all the trees will die at the same time at some point, and it will look crazy. There we go. And just look at how dense and lovely this looks. Now, this does make me think, though, we're likely going to need to beef up the forest around here. And I hope I don't completely tank the performance of the build when I do it, because I've got to do it. It just looks really, really good. And with our site prepared, let's move on to building our custom cargo train terminal. Oh boy, would you look at that? It looks like Myrtle knows what we're up to, and she is not impressed. It looks like she has followed us from Verde Beach here to Magnolia County. We've got to watch out for fires. Thankfully, we've got Magnolia County's finest. They're on the job, and it looks like they're putting out the fire. I'm guessing this is going to be a recurring issue in this area, though, so we can't forget fire coverage. That said, that's not what we're focusing on right now. What we're going to focus on is making a completely custom cargo train terminal. Now, I know that in the past I've said that this isn't possible, and I only think it's partially possible right now, but we're going to give it a go. What I'm going to try to do is add on to our train line that's already out here. We're going to go along the side of the river and then find a suitable crossing and make a completely custom cargo train terminal. I want to do this because I want to have lumber right alongside the terminal And I want to try to make this thing a little bit smaller than it would be if we use the actual asset. My guess is I cannot make this function, and I'll explain why as we're building it. But either way, it'll be a placeholder because at some point in time, we will have access to a smaller asset. So to begin, I want to find the most suitable location here. So if we look right here, it's 139 meters. And if we cross the water, we can see it's about 139 right here. So I'll set that height, flatten a pad, and this is where our bridge needs to reach to. Now for this, I think we're gonna go with our two-way train tracks. So we'll add that right here. So now we need to buy some tiles. And what I'm thinking is we want to just kind of cut across this diagonally. And you can kind of see it looks like there's like a flood basin right here or something like that. It's not actually going to flood, so we'll probably run down here, curve in, and then meet up with our track right there. And then we'll get some tiles diagonally to get down to the clearing. That's 14 more tiles. That's just a $5 million purchase. No big deal. I've got an idea. This is maybe a bad idea, but we're going to try it anyway. So just like we did over in Paradise Bay in the new urbanist development, what I'm going to try to do is just draw my preferred alignment. And honestly, I don't like that. So I'm glad that we did this. You can see that that is a very sharp turn. So we'll try that again. We'll call a mulligan. And now I will slope between here and here all the way along this track. And there we go. We've spread that out very nicely, and that the slopes here are much better. So now we just need to make our way down the rest. And you can see I didn't buy enough tiles if I don't get this just right. Now we have an interesting situation right here. We're currently at 99 meters and we need to get up to about 103. And we're at about 100 meters right here. So I'm going to create a flat pad and then we'll slope up to this right about here. And kind of like we did over in the other segment, I think I'm just going to try to draw this where my ideal alignment would be. And then we'll fix it after the fact. Okay, and that junction looks pretty good. We are going to need a junction going in the opposite direction though. Now, all the way along this track, we are going to soften the edges and make sure that we don't have trees that are right next to the track. And after that, we will build our terminal. And I know many of you think I like to smooth things too much, and you're probably right, but here's the thing. I just think that it's such a satisfying tool to use. I just love it. I don't know what to say. I just love it so much. So we're going to keep rolling with it. All right. So what I want to do now is create this cargo train terminal. So these are going to be where we actually have our cargo lines terminating. So we've got a couple of lines right here and then some roads. These roads are going to be critical because we are going to be placing some lumber storage off from here. So I want to get the roads to be closer to the track. And there we go. You can see that there's basically no light in between these roads and the tracks. Now we just need to connect the track up with our main line. All right, and now we just need to make a couple of connections with our roads. And what I'm thinking is I want a direct, basically straight across connection right here. And it hates that, and rightfully so. And there we go. We do have some lumpies and bumpies though. I feel like I've got to fix that. We can't leave it like that. And what this has come down to is I've done some real bad terrain things. We may need to redo this one, but I'm going to try my best to save it first. And thankfully that was fairly simple to fix. Now for our exit out of here, I want to try to work with the terrain, which is easy for me to say as I've just been completely making the terrain respect me. Now let's figure out this height, 146. 146 is right about there. We will cut up. Now here's where the magic is going to begin. So I am going to go and pop into our developer menu under simulation, and we're going to bypass validation results. Now this is really important. Bypassing validation results allows you to do more than anarchy in certain instances, and this is one of those instances where you can do more. So normally you can't actually place one of these integrated cargo train stops. When you go to place it, it'll say either no cargo vehicle access or no track connection. And if I only have anarchy on, I cannot place this. But there's more. Cargo teleports from the track into the warehouse. So if I were to take this integrated cargo train stop and place that right here on the track, there's no place for the cargo to teleport to so that it can be loaded onto a truck. So as a result, it's throwing me an error message. Now with bypass validation results, I can still place that thing here. The one problem is you can see where it's connecting. It wants to connect onto the side. And if we take a look, this is actually supposed to be right in the center of the track. And like I was mentioning with the teleporting, what I think is happening is they're taking the cargo, teleporting it into this building, and that's how they're loading it onto vehicles. I don't have this building as a small asset, so there's no way for me to do that. And I can't change the snapping, so there's no way for me to place this in the center, and that's why normally you can't do anything with this. We are going to do a little bit of finagling with this to make it work. So I want to add a stop right here, and I was able to do that. We'll add another one right here, and another one right here. And we're going to use the replace tool again. This time we'll turn everything off, and we'll just shimmy this over a little ways. Now that we have our tracks in place and our roads, I want to have some lumber storage right along the tracks, with the idea being that you could load the lumber directly onto the train from this location. So for this, we're going to search for forestry. And if we narrow it down to industrial buildings, we'll get all of these industrial storage. And these are just places to store lumber. And it looks like I can go a full 5 units back. So 5 is going to be the second number. So I could go with these 4x5s or 3x5s. So what we want to do now is use our better bulldozer and make some significant modifications to these assets. And I want to get rid of all of the fences here. And then we'll get rid of all of these containers. Then we'll get rid of all of these lights. And last but not least, I want to modify the surfaces. So now is the real test. So what I want to do is create 3 different cargo rail routes. So we're going to grab our cargo rail route tool. We'll grab that first connection, add a waypoint to Duluth, and then we'll complete the route. And I'm going to do the exact same thing with all 3 other stops. In fact, we'll just go to different locations. And would you look at that? We've got our first train rolling in. And here's what I want to demonstrate. If we take a look at this, there shouldn't be any cargo on here. Yeah, we're at 0 tons. It didn't pick anything up, but it will go back and forth. So we're halfway there. Now, one interesting thing. This train is waiting here, presumably because we don't have any more double track. I bet you that another train is making its way. Yeah, it's right there. We've got to fix that. And I think that should do the trick. We basically just double tracked all the way through here, and we should start to see these load up at each of these. There we go. Now, I do want to take a look at our different routes because I am concerned. If we got 3 vehicles, knowing that this isn't doing anything and that it's purely cosmetic, I'm going to get as few vehicles as we can on each of these routes. And it looks like between the 3 routes, we're using 5 trains, and I'm going to be completely fine with that. I think that is going to be completely acceptable. And then the very last thing that I want to do here is add a whole bunch of trees around this. So once again, we'll use our new brush, really small brush size, and we will just load this in and come right up to these facilities. And there we go. I like that. And with our train tracks in place, let's build our custom lumber industry. Now it's finally time to make this build functional. So there's only one problem. We cleared all the trees, so we can't have a forestry industry without them. So we've got to plant some more. In the past, what I would have probably done is just sprayed some trees through here and called it a day. And that's certainly a valid way of doing it, particularly if you want it to look like an old growth forest that you are just basically clear cutting. But I want this to seem like a sustainable forestry industry. And for that, I actually want to refer back to the way that the forestry industry looked as part of the industry's DLC in City Skylines 1. And you can tell with these assets, trees are planted in nice, even rows. There are a variety of sizes depending on the asset that you have. And that makes it seem like it is a sustainable forestry industry. Here in City Skylines 2, this could actually be a sustainable industry because the trees grow. So we have a really unique opportunity here. So this build could be completed in a completely vanilla way. We could plant all the trees one by one, make our own little rows, try to space them evenly, and plant them over a number of years so that we have the growth mechanic working in our favor. However, that would be very tedious, and we're not going to do that. So we're going to be using 2 mods that are going to really help us out today. We're going to use the line tool so we can plant all of our trees in nice, even rows, and we are going to be using Tree Controller, which will help us adjust the age of trees. But before we plant a single tree, I want to think a little bit about the extractors and kind of the circulation network through this forestry industry. So we've said that these paved roads are basically our arterials running through the industry, and we are going to have some collectors, if you will, coming off from here, collecting the traffic from our extractors and getting them to these main arterials. So I can see one problem already. We have this right here as a dirt road, and I wanted to do this for aesthetic purposes. I think we'll run all the way up to right here as that arterial, and it'll break down into those dirt roads as you get closer to the tracks. I also have a little bit of a surprise. We're going to make this look a lot better. I finally got my decals working. It's been an issue. Now I want to think about the distributor roads coming off from here and the extractors that we're going to have. With mods, because we have anarchy, we could make this one gigantic extractor area. We'd get about 50 or 60 workers for this entire thing, and the trees would be cut down very slowly because of the size of this area. So what I'm thinking is we are going to have a number of extractors, and this will actually help us accomplish our goal of unlocking the paper mill eventually as well. So I want to find flat areas where I could place an extractor building. Now I'm going to hold off on placing the extractors for a little while because I want to show you how you could do this in a completely vanilla build. Well, mostly. I'm going to use the line tool and the tree controller because I'm not a masochist, but just know that without those mods, you could do exactly what I'm doing in a vanilla build. It would just take you a long time. And we are going to plant a number of forests. We're going to divide them up by tree species, and I'll show you exactly how to set each of these up. Now, I want the trees to be as closely spaced as they can be. So I'm going to go for the elderly tree alone and then use the line tool. And I want to make sure that we've got rotation on so all the trees don't look exactly the same. And then I want to make sure that I don't have fixed length selected because that will screw up all my spacing here. And I can see that there's a little bit of light in between these trees. I think I want to tighten it up. I want to pack as many trees in as we can. And it seems like I can get away with maybe 17. They're touching, but they're not so close that it's outrageous. Now there are 2 ways that I can handle the growth mechanic. So I could go ahead and draw lines of trees for each of the different ages of trees, child, teen, adult, elderly. But my fear is that if I do that, I'll end up throwing off the spacing because it will visually look different to me. So I'm gonna paint these all in as elderly trees and then we'll adjust it after the fact. Okay, and I think that is looking like a pretty good start for us, but we've got to adjust the ages here. Now to do that, if you have tree controller, you'll notice that at the bottom it says change, and the first button is the change tree age tool. We're gonna go into that, and now we can select the age that we want each tree to be. So I'm gonna say that we want child trees to begin with, and we're gonna take this and make the radius really small, something that we can manage. So I'm taking this down to 30, and it's really precise. It's not like the forestry brush where it's kind of fuzzy. This one is very precise. You can just go over the top and change the ages. And we're gonna basically do that so that we have 4 different ages of trees. And there we go. You can imagine that they'll harvest over here, and then as things age out, they'll loop back around. And then the trees will regrow in these exact locations. So they'll just keep basically cycling through here, and there will always be oaks to harvest. Now we are going to go ahead and reproduce this exact same process on all of these other empty fields. And we'll have at least 4, maybe even 5 different species of trees that we do this for. And there we go. We've got all of our trees planted. And I'm going to be honest with you, there's something really therapeutic about planting all the trees and then using the tree controller mod to change the ages. It was really relaxing. So I would highly encourage this kind of a build. All right, let's get these things functional. And you can see I've left spaces in a couple of different locations for the extractors. So let's go ahead and start placing them. Now, we could do a couple of different things. We have Anarchy on, which will allow us to create a unique size. And actually, we're going to have to do that because you can see our first extraction building is going to be right here. And it's already going to have problems because if we were to just place it right here, we couldn't reach some of our oaks. So we'll have to have Anarchy on for all of these. The other thing is I don't love the way that this is situating against the road. So I'm going to turn off all my snapping and we will adjust this after the fact and have the road come right up to this extractor. I'm going to turn all the snapping off here as well. The nice thing about Anarchy is it means I can run these right through roads and things like that. I just want to be really careful to make sure that I'm not inadvertently leaving this forest. So for all of these, I'm going to be very, very, very careful. And there we go. And this thing is fully operational. It's got 32 employees, possibility of 33. So it's even fewer than I was thinking, which makes it all the better that we're gonna have lots of extractors. So this is exactly what we're gonna do for the rest of these. So I'll get these ones all finished up fairly quickly. Now, ideally, these are all currently functional forestry industries. So I just want to go through and click on these. And you can see this one's already actually got some extraction occurring right here. You can actually see the extractors going out and they're heading out towards some of the bigger trees. So this one's working as well. Fantastic. Same thing here. We've got it all. They're all working. So this is exactly what I was hoping to see. There is one thing I'm a little bit curious about. Here's where I'd like some feedback from you. I could eliminate this surface, the forestry surface underneath here. If you think that I should, let me know down in the comments. For now, I think that we're going to leave it. And with our lumber industry in place, let's move on to our Myrtle Park expansion. For the extension of Myrtle Park, I don't want to overcomplicate this. I basically want to taper the densities. You can see right here, the buildings are really close together. We'll add a unit of separation as we back away from the denser part of the neighborhood, and then maybe a few units of separation back here. Then I want to take the trees and bring them right into the lots, and we'll probably manually place some buildings around this cul-de-sac right here. Now, the other thing I want to keep in mind is that we use the European low density right here. We're going to do the exact same thing back here to make the neighborhood feel really cohesive. And there we go. I think that's looking pretty good. You can see that we have the densities tapering off the closer we get to the woods and the forestry industry, and that's exactly what we were going for. There are two more things I want to do here. We've got this little horseshoe right here that's empty, and I think that this is a perfect spot for a soccer field. Now, I want to see if I can potentially back this asset back. So we've got this soccer field right here. I'm going to turn this towards Sheffield Street. And then I'm really curious about what I can get rid of on this asset. The one thing I don't love. Look at the topography disrespect. I'm going to see if I can improve this at all. So a little bit of move it action to make that work. And then the other thing I want to do is we've got a bit of cement right here. We'll get rid of the cement. And then we've got some manicured grass as well. I think we're going to work that all the way around. And there we go. Now it just looks like a neighborhood soccer pitch in the middle of this neighborhood. I think that looks a ton better. We're going to add some trees as well, but I feel like we should do something here. And there we go. Nothing all that crazy, but we've got a little bit of landscaping through here. I think that looks pretty darn good. Now, for the rest of this, we are going to just extend the forest as close into the homes as we can. So we'll once again use our forestry brush, and we're going to need to get close for this one because I don't want to inadvertently place this in the middle of homes. We do have anarchy on. If I turn that off, I think that it doesn't get as dense as we want it to be. And there we go. And basically, as soon as I finished my last sentence, I realized I probably should keep anarchy off, go with some smaller trees and place those right next to the homes, because then I could get really nice and close within here. And then I brought the larger trees closer to the home. So eventually these new trees will grow up and it'll seem like we attempted to reforest this area as we were building the homes. And I like the way that that has turned out. And then the very last thing I want to do here is adjust our district boundaries, because now Myrtle Park, the neighborhood, should extend out a bit further, and the township of Lebanon probably shouldn't include some of these homes right here. Let's make a couple of small adjustments. And there we go. And we need one more name for a town. So we have Briarwood Way. That's not a very good name for a rural town. If you have one, why don't you drop it in the comments below? And with all of that work done, I think there's only one more thing left to do. That's take inventory of what we've done with a brief city tour. And I'm really curious to know how you guys feel about that tour. I tried to mix it up because there was a number of comments that said that you weren't really happy with the way the tours were turning out. You wanted something a little bit more intimate, and that was my attempt at it. I'm also curious because I haven't done it yet, so I'm not exactly sure what I'm doing, but I'm sure it's going to be different. All that said, I wanted to make a couple of fixes based on your feedback, and the main one is the name for this neighborhood over here. That's one of the primary questions I had at the end of the previous episode is, what should we name this place? And right now it's currently called Bend Hills, but I really love the idea that Drek Fletch had naming this Canterbury just as a kind of a nod to James Candor to Jamila when creating this neighborhood. Thank you so much for the idea, Drek Fletch. I think it's a very good one. And the next bit of feedback was about all the grass surfaces that I used. And it's probably one of the more polarizing things that I've done in the build. Now, it's interesting. We've got this comment right here that talks about the grass surfaces giving the area a very specific look. And that look is HOA suburban dystopia. And I guess I can feel that. That said, there were many comments that said that they liked it, and what I think I've settled on is we're going to leave it here because it's already here, and when we have suburban areas like this, very cul-de-sac-y, but still in relatively built-up areas, we'll probably do it still, but as we get into urban areas like this, I'd rather not do it, and we probably wouldn't do it on the hillside again. And honestly, that's the main reason why in this new neighborhood, I have not added any of those grass surfaces because we're trying to blend it into the countryside, and I just don't think it would make a ton of sense to have those surfaces everywhere here. And I think with that, we're going to leave it here. And I really hope that you've enjoyed this episode. If you did, please hit the like button. If you're not subscribed to the channel, please consider doing so. And I just really want to thank you for your time today. There's a million things that you could have been doing. You decided to hang out with me and play some City Skylines too, and I genuinely appreciate that. I also wanted to make you aware that this save will be available on Paradox Mods. It is the 25th episode. Every 5 episodes, we post it, so this one will be out there if you want to check it out. Once again, thank you so much for joining me, and I can't wait to see you in the next one. Take care. Bye-bye.